Okay, so I just want to talk real quick about the JCPS meeting that I went to. They're talking about the RSOs, the police officers being in the school, and like the problems with all of that. And I wanted to listen to what people had to say and all that kind of stuff. And it seems to me, it's just like the same thing over and over and over again. Oh, there's just a few bad apples, where people, I'm glad that we got both sides, perspectives on both sides. But again, it sounds like the same old story. They talked about they talked about all the discrimination, the prison, the pipeline, all this other stuff, the racism, systemic racism, blah 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 blah. And then on the other side, they're saying we need these RSOs here. Their resources, they help this connection with the community and all this other stuff, which I understand that. But to me, the big problem, what the major issue is not properly educating the kids. No joke, they opened up with these little displays by what the kids are working on in school. And out of all the things they could pick, out of all the things they could be working on, especially with what the topic was at this point, which was they talked about the Native Americans, colonialism, so like the Pilgrims and all that other stuff, and then ancestry. Three things that aren't quite the same. There was one black person, black child in the with the they did like a colonial like dancing thing. There was black child there, but the other two ones there weren't black kids. Which that's not a problem at all. But the issue is when we're talking about racism, systemic racism, and institutionalized racism. A big part of that is education. And a lot of stuff gets brushed over. We don't focus. We're not saying it didn't happen. We just don't address it at all. And I know maybe they didn't want to get too real or something with the kids or something like that, or what they were talking about. But they recognize the differences. You can tell a child if they're 5, 6, 7 years old. You can tell a child, yes, white people were bad. Well, they still are, but white people are bad. They did a lot of bad things to the Native Americans, to the slaves. This country was around for about 100 years before the abolishment of slavery, and even then, it wasn't quite an abolishment because then we just reverted to locking people up in jail and turn that into them into the new slaves. But to me, and I applaud the people that talk about the systemic racism and prison pipeline and all this other stuff. That's great. I applaud you for that, and that's important to address. However, that's defensive. That's defending defending black people, defending what's going on, defending the discrimination. You've pointed it out very clearly. Yes, you did a very good job of that. But the issue is, how do we fix it? We keep talking about this problem over and over and over and over again. It's well established, but yet both sides just keep bickering back and forth, and we get nowhere. And people wonder why nothing has changed in the last 20, 30, 50, 60, 70 years is because we're not proactive. And I was walking through the school, and I could tell that this was a white institution, that they weren't trying to be open, that this wasn't as open-minded as they try to be, because they always say, we have diverse, we're very this, we're very that. But are you teaching other things, or are you just getting more mascots? You know what I'm saying? Are you just getting people that don't look like you to think the same way that you do? Because that's what really it is. That's what's going on. That's why when you go into these, like I was at the meeting, and there was basically no black people. I mean, I understand people are busy, people have this, people have that, but this isn't like just your child type of things. This is a community thing. This is a cultural thing. So there's no reason why that shouldn't be packed with people, because of how important this stuff is, how difficult it is to re-educate somebody once they've already been indoctrinated. You're talking, and we keep passing the buck and stuff until, college and all this other stuff. It doesn't always happen there. it needs to be self-educated. And as far as the curriculum here, I went and looked at a board. They had, Spanish, French, algebra, pre-calc, all that stuff, social studies. And you know what's interesting? They have world history, U.S. history, and then European history. Out of all the things, why Europe? Why Europe? Well, I mean, doesn't it get pretty well covered in world and U.S. history? I mean, just for a sake of ignorance, don't you think it would be more helpful to educate people on Africa, what happened, the history of Africa, colonization, and before that, and since then, and how things are structured and why these issues are still persistent, and how much of it is it really just the people that are being violent or doing this or doing that, and how much of it was sewn in to their culture and taught to them when they were colonized? We don't address things like that. And that's a huge issue, because when you're mentally strong, you can handle stuff like this. You can handle with the police brutality. You can stand up to it, and you can hold strong. And if you come in and have a community effort, you can threaten to withdraw your students. I know that black people, other people, they're not the majority of the school body, but they do make up a significant portion. And I feel like if they were to withdraw at a pretty high rate, that it would have a substantial impact on the money that's received. And people would take notice of stuff like that. But people don't, I don't know, just people don't care. And they, like I said, people are too proactive. We're too woe is me and racism and all these people and police brutality, and they go overboard with, yes, I agree with that, but I'm not. But I feel like I would feel like an idiot after a while of trying to explain this to a panel of white people, which that's what it was, by the way. It was all a bunch of white people, and you wonder why it's so difficult to address and why these issues aren't being at the forefront and aren't taken from different angles, and basically a more communal effort. It's always controlled. They always control the narrative. That's another very important thing that was happened here tonight. Controlling the narrative. You can't say this, you can't say that. And I understand there's rules and you have to have some sort of etiquette because you don't want complete chaos. But you can tell the little subtleties of, they don't want people, getting out of pocket, as it were, and saying anything a little bit too, honest, I would say, or a little bit too real for them. They like that little subtle, everybody get together, everybody's cool. I couldn't imagine the kind of response I would get if I started talking about black education and, black people knowing their history and learning how to be black and be proud of that and not be warped into this world of oppression and white supremacy and stuff like that. It's just really baffling to me that continually, I'm not trying to discredit any sort of racism or whatever, that white people aren't doing this. But if from a black perspective, you need to be proactive. You need to write the narrative. Just like they write the narrative, you can have your own narrative. You don't have to, oh, please don't hit our kids. Please don't lock us up. Please don't do this. Just, you can keep teaching us the same indoctrinated white supremacist stuff. Just don't beat us. Just don't put us in handcuffs, massa. We'll read the books. We'll read them real good, sir. We'll read them real good. We'll write a lot of papers, and we'll say lots of good things about you. We'll hug you. We'll shake your hand. We'll do all of this stuff. We'll support you in anything you want. Just please, massa, please don't hit us. At some point you gotta take responsibility for stuff and say, F this, F that. We're gonna do our own thing. I understand you may not have the capabilities or the resources to take your child out of public schools and educate them. That doesn't mean you can't give them a book. That doesn't mean that you can't have them reading Malcolm X, James Baldwin, Maya Angelou. Black labor, white wealth. All these kind of things that give kids a construct of the world that they're in. Because like I said, this will break you. I'm not that old. I'm still relatively young. I'm 25, and I can already see how important this is for kids to get this education, because nobody's getting it to them. Literally nobody's getting it to them. Black, white, whatever. They're not getting it, whether it's after school programs, whether it's whether it's in school, it's not happening, and it's extremely, extremely important, because you don't realize how brainwashed it really is. And especially, like, I was lucky enough to grow up, out in the country and and not be, basically have less experience, be much more mature once I got experience to it. But a lot of these kids, pretty much all of them, don't have that luxury that I have, that I can have this perspective and I can understand growing up in this system, and how easily it is to be brainwashed and indoctrinated and get caught up with the wrong people. But nobody cares the right way. It's always the white supremacist, coddling that causes them to look up to white people and see them as positions of power, people doing stuff, people in action, and they always see their people are the ones begging and pleading and trying to ask, speak truth to power, rather than being that power. And so, like I said, self-education is so important, so important. But I gotta go to work and stuff like that, another day in the plantation. But I encourage you every day, if there's one thing that I do every day, or on the most consistent basis, it's read, and read. Because if they can't, once this is sound, they can't penetrate that. You can filter through any BS that they hand you out, and you can, like, I've noticed that, like, the more that I listen to other people that know what's going on, the more that I can just quickly, I can see a couple things and I know exactly what's going on here. But please like this, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. And because I would like to get up to 100 followers, so I don't have to be worried about how much data I have on my phone, and be able to go live. So appreciate it, and talk to you guys later. All right, bye.